Hello, everyone. Welcome to this Q plus E discussion on communication regarding sex with your partner or partners. I am E. I am the founder of Q plus EDU. I'm mostly here to moderate the chat and the Q&A. So if you have any questions, comments, if you want to participate in discussion as this presentation goes on, feel free to do so either in the chat or in the Q&A. But yeah, we're super excited for this presentation, and I'm going to turn it over to Christina to introduce what we'll be talking about today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, E. Hi, everyone. My name is Christina. I identify as a bisexual cisgender femme woman. And this is my lovely presentation partner, Tonja.
Hi, everybody. My name is Tonja Payne. I identify with the pronouns she and her. I am currently in Phoenix, Arizona. Yeah, nice to meet everybody.
Hi. Okay, so let's get into the presentation. All right, can everybody see that? Give me a thumbs up. Tonja, can you see it okay?
I can see everything fine, yeah.
Yeah, we all see it.
All right, so welcome to Let's Talk About Sex, Communication for Healthy Relationships. And before we get started, we wanted to mention the reason why Tonja and I are so passionate about this panel and this topic is because we grew up with a pretty limited sex education as high school students. I am in my late 20s. I'm almost 30. 15, 16 years ago, the education was very limited for this and still is in most places. So we wanted to create a space where we can really center communication for queer relationships.
For a healthy, functional relationship.
Yes. Okay, so this is just an overview of what we're gonna go ahead and do. So we're gonna start off with a collective breathing exercise led by the beautiful Tonja. Do some positive affirmations led by myself. Talk about queer sex and what it is. Then we're going to discuss pleasure activism, which is a term you may not have heard before. We're going to talk about healthy communication. And then we're going to get into the fun stuff, which is the actual talking about all of the hard stuff. Getting tested, sexual health and safety, consent, setting boundaries, and more. And Tonja's area of expertise is open, polyamorous, and ethical non-monogamous relationships. And then we're going to end on a fun note because it's Friday. And we're both like astrology buffs, so we're going to incorporate astrology into this. Awesome. So let's get started. Okay.
Hey, everybody. We're going to start with a quick breathing exercise. It's been a long week. A lot of transits happening, full moon in Aquarius, so everybody was running around and trying to get themselves together, as well as to just ground themselves within this really like erratic energy right now. So what we're going to do, if you're sitting, sit up straight, or if you're laying down, lay down comfortably. I ask you to please close your eyes and let my voice guide you into the breathing exercise. What you're going to do is you're going to expand your diaphragm and breathe in. And we're going to let out a tiger's breath, just to let out the weak. We're going to do 3 of those. So breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in and breathe out. We're just going to do 1 loud breath at the end just to release the weak. Breathe in nice and deep for me. And out. As you're coming back into this reality, go ahead and set yourself back into your body. Feel the surroundings around you. Slowly open your eyes and let's come back in. focus on our presentation. Thank you guys so much.
Awesome. That was wonderful, Tonja. Thank you. Okay, so let's go into some positive affirmations. This is something that Tonja and I like to do personally for our personal relationships. And when we're thinking about affirmations, basically we're confirming these positive statements about ourselves. And the more that we meditate on these statements and think about them, the more they will manifest and set a good platform for healthy communication around sex. So if possible, it's really helpful if you actually write these down, or if you can, say them out loud. So I'm just going to read them out loud and you can follow along. I am safe, loved, and healthy. I deserve partners who respect and support me. I feel comfortable talking to my partners about anything. Conversations with my partners about sex are positive and free of judgment. And the last one I love. I transform all negative ideas surrounding sex into positive ones. Now, when we're looking at this word transform, we're thinking about change. Okay, so a lot of times in the queer community, we have a lot of external influence coming in and influencing our own ideas about ourselves, internalized homophobia, internalized transphobia. So what I want you all to do, if you can, the next time you have a negative thought about your own sexuality come into your head, I want you to transform it. How can we turn that into something that's positive? For example, if you're thinking to yourself, oh, I feel really bad that my sexual history and my past partners do not match my current orientation. For example, in the past, maybe you had sex with cisgender men and now you identify as a lesbian, just as an example, and you're feeling bad about that. Let's transform that. Okay, so what we're going to think instead is my sexual history does not define me, and I am constantly evolving in my identity and orientation. Okay, see how easy that was? Cool. And it's really helpful too if you keep a journal for these kinds of things. Write them down every day, read them to yourself, keep it in a little post-it, maybe in your bathroom, in a journal, or wherever you like to keep notes for yourself. Okay, so let's get into the basic definition of what is sex. And we wanted to approach this from a queer perspective because most of the sex ed classes now, they're very heteronormative, they're very cisgender centric, only thinking about sex in terms of a penis and a vagina and a cisgender man and a cisgender woman. And in reality, it's, much more expansive than that. So Tonja and I came up with this new definition for sex that's inclusive, which is a physical merging of human bodies in a pleasurable way. This could be two people, this could be 3 or 4 at the same time or at different times. And also this can include fingers, digital, oral, including your mouth, anal, vaginal. Sex could include toys. It could not. It could be 2 people pleasuring themselves in tandem, side by side. And, however you want to have sex and whatever a definition is to you that's meaningful, that's totally valid. And we also want to think about sex outside of that cisgender heterocentric view. Non-binary folks are having sex, trans folks, disabled, two-spirit, cisgendered, gay, lesbian, bisexual, pansexual, queer, and more. If you're watching this, whatever your identity or orientation is, how you're having sex is totally valid, and it doesn't have to subscribe to definition that you see in the media or hear in your typical sex ed class in school. All right, so Tonja is going to talk about this lovely book.
Oh, right, everyone. Adrienne Marie Brown is an amazing author, and she created this book called Pleasure Activism, The Politics of Feeling Good. And with queer folk, it is important to find pleasure within yourself. My quote is that pleasure doesn't come from specifically an external source, it's your internal source of pleasure that you find. Could you go to the next slide, please?
Yes.
Thank you. Sex is a holistic, pleasurable experience. It encourages sexual exploration either by yourself or with your partners. My question to the attendees are, how can you manifest pleasure in other areas of your life? What does non-romantic pleasure look like to you? Thank you for putting a link to the book. I recommend everyone read it because it's amazing. She makes a point in the book that pleasure is something that a lot of queer folks of color don't get to experience, from being marginalized, oppressed in every area of our life, where it's in school, finding pleasure in education, finding pleasure in love, finding pleasure within ourselves. It's stripped away, and we didn't get the chance to find pleasure as well as experience pleasure in our environments or with the people around us in our relationships. So her approach in this book is finding pleasure in all aspects of your life, whereas that's with relationships, with your friendships, within regaining your pleasure back as a form of activism and relishing in that and empowering yourself through that. Would anybody like to answer the question on how you can manifest pleasure in other areas of your life non-romantically, where that is in writing, where that is in school, where it is in your life in general? And the chat is open for anybody who would like to speak on that. An example of where I find pleasure in my life, romantically and non-romantically. I'll start with non-romantically first. I find pleasure in food, finding pleasure in relearning how to feel good in my body and to give myself foods that are pleasurable to me, as in healthy foods or in foods that are, great for my overall being, that makes me feel nourished. Christina, what are some areas of pleasure in your life that you find pleasure?
I think for me, learning to reconnect with nature. I'm very fortunate enough to live in beautiful, sunny Austin. So getting in touch with the natural world, taking walks outside, especially having chronic pain, learning to slow down and just enjoy the world around me. It helps me not to internalize some of the chronic pain that I experience.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And how do you feel that has upgraded your life or made your life feel better? How do you feel like you've taken an activism approach with pleasure? Oh, we do have someone from E. To me, it's just not feeling guilty about being joyful in any arena. I find pleasure in music, even when it's bad. I find pleasure in online shopping and being shallow. Abolishing structural violence is great, but sometimes life is fun and stupid, and that is okay. Definitely. We always take a serious approach when it comes to our lives, especially as young queer folk at that. So we are like, okay, we always have to be on lock with our activism, with our justice, with understanding the languages of everything around us and trying to always stay on top of what's going on in world events when we don't even find time to enjoy a cup of coffee or tea. It's always, let's get it popping. Let's go on ahead and try to, relish in the fact. And I love how you said, I find pleasure in music, even when it's bad. And there's really no bad or good music. There's just different vibrations of music that you resonate with, and finding pleasure in that music and enjoying it. It's nothing wrong with that. Even if they say a couple cuss words, okay, but it's pleasurable for you to be in your full self-expression and enjoying the music, whatever genre that is. And I really also appreciate abolishing structural violence is great, but sometimes life is fun, stupid, and that is okay. Because life can get crazy, especially during this time. A lot of us are just trying to make our voices heard. A lot of us are trying to allow our voices to be seen, being seen in these spaces, and we're not even giving ourselves the pleasure of, let me even enjoy the fact that I'm getting myself out there. I find pleasure in being in spaces where my voice is heard as well. So I definitely thank you, E, for saying that and coming with that approach. And we're just going to give maybe one more minute to anybody else who would like to speak on how they find pleasure in their life. But please, anyone in this chat, please read Pleasure Activism. Please take E's link and go and click and read that book. Great thing. That it's very like deep and rich and queer knowledge of pleasure. It really opens you up to, why wasn't I doing this before? So, all right. Christina, if you go to the next slide, please. Thank you all for your participation.
Okay, so now we're gonna do a little exercise with everybody watching.
Yes.
So I want you to think of what healthy communication looks like to you. This doesn't just have to be in a sexual context. Friends, parents, coworkers if you have them, family, neighbors. What does healthy communication look like, and what does it feel like, more importantly, for you? And just go ahead and put your responses in the chat, and Tonja will take a look at them.
Yes. Christina, do you want to give like a quick example of what healthy and unhealthy communication could be?
Absolutely. So for me, healthy communication looks like feeling safe, feeling validated in my concerns. Healthy communication is when my partners are holding space for me, and I'm holding space for them to voice any worries, any concerns, any affirmations for each other of affection. It's not judgmental, and it's accepting. That's what it looks like for me.
Okay, awesome. So, and please correct me if I'm saying this right. Hataim said to be able to communicate fully and not need to worry about being judged or criticized.
Yes. That's amazing.
Yes, definitely. I think the hardest thing in relationships is communication in a way where both people might not see eye to eye, but I'm still going to open up space to make you feel safe, for myself to feel safe, to express things that I might not could say at any other time. I would like to just express and create these boundaries now, so for later down the line, we can become eye to eye. It's a lot of being able to agree to disagree. And E said, being able to communicate openly and honestly without fear of being punished or manipulated. Definitely. Manipulation is also a fact. If someone makes you feel like, oh, what do you mean? Or how can you approach this? Always get up and say, give me a second to recoup this, and walk away. You should never feel gaslighted and manipulated when you're talking to someone, especially when they make you feel like you're the only one that's causing the issue. So, yes. Thank you. Thank you to everybody who commented.
Awesome. Okay. Should we move on to the next slide?
Mm-hmm.
This is one of my favorite quotes. Somebody told me this when I was in an abusive relationship. When you're wearing rose-colored glasses, all the red flags can just look like flags. So in terms of a sexual relationship with someone, you might be experiencing physical pleasure with that person. Sometimes the physical pleasure can be so powerful that it overshadows the unhealthy communication that's going on in that relationship. So sometimes we want to take a step back, and it can be very hard. Sometimes you need somebody else to come in and provide an objective view for you. But I want you to just kind of keep this in mind. And this is another one of my favorite quotes, is to stay away from people who make you feel like you are hard to love. Everybody watching this absolutely deserves to experience sexual pleasure and a healthy sex life within a safe space. And we want you to cultivate that in your own lives because, like Tonja explained before, sex is about experiencing pleasure. And if somebody is making you feel like you're hard to love, then that's not somebody that you want to be engaging with. And I know that can be really hard, but just know that every single person here absolutely deserves to enjoy their sex life. Okay. So now we're going to get into the actual topics, the fun things. Yay!
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 All right.
So I think before we get started, why don't we just drop some comments in the chat and talk about what are some challenges that you face or think that you might face when you're talking about sex with your partner. I'm really curious to see what you'll say.
And while we are waiting for some answers to come up from our attendees, I believe one of my challenges when I'm talking about sex with my partners is the getting tested question. It's sometimes it just like, how do you go about being like, oh, hey, did you get tested? What's going on? How do you do that? And so it's always that awkward conversation, especially when you feel like, if I ask this question, will the person even feel interested in me anymore? Is it even going to be worth it? And if these certain questions are popping up in the mind, or if when you do ask the question, they're like giving you a million other answers than a yes or a no, or the time frame, it's really not worth it.
Yes.
Yes. What are some of your challenges, Christina?
I think for me, particular challenges like being bisexual. So I've been with cisgender men, cisgender women, like trans women. Is my partners often assume that I'm more prone to STIs because of my preferences or history. So I had a past female identified partner who told me that she didn't need to get tested because she only slept with women, but since I had slept with men as well in the past, that I was dirty and that I needed to get tested, but she didn't. And that's not really something that you're going to hear in your standard sex ed class in high school.
Yeah.
But yeah, just facing biphobia surrounding my sexual history has been a particular challenge for me.
No, definitely. And that's a real challenge, especially when they have that certain mindset and you're like, that's not my logic. That's not safe.
It doesn't work like that.
No, it does not. E said, I've had challenges communicating about safety and boundaries. I think people have a hard time understanding that consent needs to be given throughout an encounter, not just at the beginning, and that certain actions need to be discussed and negotiated ahead of time. Pre-consenting, yes. Pre and post consenting. There should always be a process when it comes to communicating with your partners about, okay, this is what I feel. I don't feel this anymore, but let's try this approach to our action at this time, versus being like, okay, let's do this. Then going into it, your mind's telling you, no, I'm not okay with this. Your body's beginning to reject that action, and it should be expressed and definitely spoken about. And that's definitely a challenge, is communicating safety and boundaries. That's always a huge challenge because not everybody respects boundaries. Mm-hmm. Why?
It's 2020.
It's 2020.
Let's respecting boundaries. It's a thing.
Okay, like, you know, and I understand, like, not everybody understands boundaries, but we're getting ready to acknowledge that because we're respecting boundaries in 2020. Yep. And we're getting ready to go into our next slide, which is how to talk about getting tested. Mm-hmm. A lot of us don't really have the conversation. We speak about sex quite a bit. It may have been spoken about one time in sex ed class. Did you get tested? But we really don't know the different levels and elements to getting tested and talking and having that conversation with the person. Yeah. And I really like on the slide how we talk about positive words, which are, I care about you and I think would be a good idea for us to get tested together, and that why don't we have to worry about it and can just enjoy each other. I want to make sure we're both healthy and safe. It's all about your safety. Mm-hmm. And those are really good segues into, let's go get tested. Hey, I can give you a ride. If you don't have a ride, come with me. We can both go get tested. Oh, you don't have the money? That's cool. I have it for both of us. Let's go get tested. Mm-hmm. There are always free testing centers around the health department. Also, there are different nonprofits that offer free testing services, so you don't have to go into, most of it's walk-ins, Planned Parenthood as well. You can go in and definitely speak about getting testing services done that are affordable or free. Also setting boundaries when it comes to getting tested. Let's wait to have sex until our test results. And that's a beautiful boundary to express because most people are already in the action. They're like, I'm ready to get started now, but wait a minute, my safety matters first. Mm-hmm. Let's go ahead and make our safety a priority versus our desires a priority, because one moment can be a lifetime. So let's go ahead and wait. Waiting is always the hardest, but it's the best route to take. And if they are not respecting that boundary, if they're pushing you or pressuring you into, let's go and do it now, always stop, get up, say, hey, thank you for this moment. I can't at this time. I cannot hold space at this time.
Yeah. So. And I think it's important to remember too, like a lot of testing, it only takes like 2 weeks to get the results. That's not a lot of time. You know, when you're thinking about a potential STI or pregnancy, you know, that has very long-term implications for your health. And also we want to think, you know, if your sex partner doesn't care enough to get tested with you, are they going to care about you if you contract an STI or come into a pregnancy that you don't want? So always prioritize your own health and your safety, and like we were talking about, frame it in a positive way, make it a group activity. You know, now you can just throw on a mask and a baseball cap. Nobody even has to, you know, recognize you at the clinic. And yeah, you know, like make a date out of it, like make it fun.
Everything is anonymous. Nothing will be spoken about with anybody else about your test results.
Yes.
And also when going to get tested, everything is confidential. You only express to the caregiver at that point what you need and what your concerns are. Nothing will be expressed to anybody else unless you have the consent to do so. So yes, definitely, please go get tested.
Okay, next
Slide.
My
Okay.
favorite phrases. I got tested today.
Yay! That's always a beautiful thing to say. I got tested today. And it feels good to take that off your conscience when you're like, cool, I don't have anything or nothing to worry about. Well, yay!
Yay. Good positive phrase.
All right. How to talk about safe sex, especially when you're getting in the moment. I think a lot of us forget in the moment about anything because we're just in the moment. But prevention and protection, PrEP, condoms, dental dams, lube, birth control, IUD, pill, patch, and shot. Also, you can do the implant in your arm as well if you don't feel comfortable taking any of those for birth control. There's also female condoms and male condoms if that needs to be expressed, and also dental dams if you don't feel comfortable fully engaging in sexual endeavors with just your mouth. And they also have condoms for your fingers as well if you don't feel comfortable putting your digits into someone and, you know, you need some protection on your hands.
Also, gloves are super sexy, you know?
They are very sexy. And they have the just little singular ones for each finger. So if you don't want to put on a whole glove, you know, you can just put on one on each finger, and that makes your whole life easier. Prevention and protection, and also like getting in the moment and understanding, wait, I don't have my condom, or I don't have my lube, I don't have my dental dams, I don't have my finger protection. It's always good to, like, as E stated earlier, to express that even throughout the process versus at the start being like, okay, we got our condoms. Okay, we have everything. I have my birth control. You're good. Okay, cool. But then getting throughout, we forget those items. Let's speak about it. Let's talk about it. Let's stop in the moment. Bring it back in after we get all of our materials that we need to further out the process. So.
Yeah. And I think it's kind of fun. Like, you know, you're like, oh, crap. Like, oh, we don't have condoms. Like, okay, like, all right, let's make a run down at the gas station real quick. You know, get some snacks and water for afterwards. Like, I don't know. I think the whole process can be really fun. You know, just make it like a little adventure. I don't know. That's how I think of it. Like, you know, this doesn't have to be like stuffy or boring. Like everything is about like you feeling good and your own safety. So, you know, just getting to spend time with your partners in any capacity. Like, you know, you're enjoying each other. That, you know, that's what we're focusing on.
Definitely. I have a really good example. I had a partner who, me and him were engaging. We definitely used condoms, and then we went into another engagement. He did not have condoms. So I said, okay, well, I'm not doing anything until that happens. And he's like, he was, of course, also, we have to remember too, when we are inebriated and we are having sex, that we need to express how we feel throughout that whole process as well. Then because he was inebriated, he said, well, I'm too lazy to get up. I said, well, I'm not. I'm going to get up. I'm going to get this condom. He's like, all right, whatever. Got the condom. And it's funny now, but in the process, in the moment, it does not feel good. But it always feels good to go and say, I'm going to get this for myself, for my safety. Thank you. And we're going to keep the process going. So.
I also wanted to touch on like toys and like toy sharing as well, because I always want to ask, like, you know, has this toy been used on anybody else? Because you can transfer disease or unwanted things that way. Like if a toy has been in somebody else's body and then it goes into your body, you know, we have fluids, there's bacteria and things. So I always think it's a good idea. Like I like having like my own vibrator, my own dildo or strap on that like is used on me, and that's who it's used on. And taking care of like my own water-based lube and toy cleaner and everything. It just makes me feel more secure if you happen to have access to like those sorts of things.
And if you need access to condoms, if you aren't able to get them or they are not something that's in your budget or affordable, health department, Planned Parenthood, doctor's offices, wherever you need, you can definitely get them from there. Also, nonprofits provide them for free as well.
Yes. Okay. Go to the next one. Consent.
Consent.
Consent is sexy. Like, I just want to, we want to like celebrate consent. I think sometimes when we hear the word consent, it can sound like heavy or stuffy, like, oh, like that doesn't sound sexy. Like, it totally is. And you can incorporate it in a really like casual but meaningful way into all of your encounters. Like I think you mentioned earlier, before with pre-consent, during, and then after sex as well. So Tonja, do you want to like talk a little bit about ways that you can, incorporate consent into your encounters?
Oh yes, my favorite conversation, consent. Definitely check-ins. I love to do check-ins with multiple partners, just to know where both of my partners are, how they're feeling. I always like to do the, hey, are you okay? Even during sex. I get the, oh, you're annoying. Sometimes you get the, oh, again, here you go. But it's always good to know, and it's always good to check in, and it makes intimacy better when you're like, are you okay? How do you feel? Does this feel good to you? Okay. Also, if you are talking to someone and you're physically attracted to them and sitting side by side and they touch you, you don't feel comfortable with that, always say, hey, I don't want to hug. I don't want you to touch me. I don't want to shake your hand. That's okay. Even though right now we can't shake hands, but it's always good to say, hey, I don't want to hug right now. I don't feel comfortable with that. And if someone crosses that boundary and they're like, hey, and they're consistently touching you on your arm and your leg and you ask them before, that's it. Get up, say, okay, thank you for your time. I don't really feel comfortable with that. Never let anybody ever make you feel bad for consenting and saying, I don't feel okay, or I don't feel comfortable with this, or I would prefer this over that. Because if that person cannot respect your consent, that is technically going into abuse. And you don't want that to happen. Don't let anybody ever abuse you or make you feel like you're less because you said, no, I prefer this over that. Ask the question, say consent's also asking, hey, did you get tested? Or, hey, do you like for me to do this, or do you prefer for me to do that? And also, it's just a casual conversation. No one doesn't never have to make it a big, huge, serious thing. If you're like me, I'm kind of awkward. I'm like, consent, how do you feel? Sometimes it's okay. Just go with it, laugh about it. Just go with the flow of it. I really like these questions. Are you comfortable? Are you sure you're okay with it? Are you sure you're okay with it? Do that second check-in when you're consenting, because you can get throughout the whole process. You're getting in there. It's about to get hot and heavy, and the person says no. They are more than welcome to say no. You are more than welcome to say no. If there is one switch within the whole process, you say no, and that is okay. And are you sure, doing that second double check-in? And they're like, yes, both times. Go on ahead and make the process happen. We can just cuddle instead if you want. That's perfect. And if they're like, I don't want to do that, goodbye. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate that. I can't hold space. Yeah. Is it okay if I do this, A, B, or C? That is perfect. Can I touch you? And like I said earlier, if someone is uncomfortably touching you, grabbing you, making you feel, no, because you consented and you said no the first time. So yeah.
Yes, I love it. Also wanted to touch on like your physical space, your clothing, your appearance, your gender presentation is not an invitation for anybody to do what they want, and don't let anybody tell you otherwise, okay? You know, however much or little clothes you're wearing, not an invitation.
You have a partner and your physical space, like she said, is not an invitation, and they feel like they can cross that boundary because you are partners, you still have every right to say no and sit down and have that conversation as well, because that is your space.
Absolutely. I think also with consent, you know, we want to hold space for, you know, somebody's emotional reactions, like during an encounter. I think I was involved in a situation where I was a third for a couple, um, two other women, and you know, and basically in the middle of the encounter, one of the women said, you know, I can't handle this anymore. This is too much for me. Like seeing you having sex with my partner or performing certain sex acts on my partner, I don't have the emotional capacity for this. And you know, we just stopped. I was like, okay, like let's go get some food or something. You know, take a break, take a water break. You know, you always want to check in and you know, be mindful of everybody's emotional reactions and health as well through the whole process. Okay. Orientation and identity. Yes. So this topic is super important because I feel like a lot of the viewers, especially young viewers, like our young Gen Z viewers, you know, you might still be figuring things out with your identity, and it could change, you know. It could change in a month, it could change in 5 years. You know, for me, like the identity and preferences that I have now are not the same that they were 10 years ago. Um, you know, people can transition in the middle of a relationship, and their relation, you know, your relationship with your own body and how you want to engage in a sexual encounter might change. You know, before maybe you were comfortable using a particular body part, and in the process of your transition, maybe you're not anymore. So, you know, you need to respect your partner's preferences as they change and evolve, and also realize that, you know, human sexuality is so complex and beautiful, and, you know, we're all like going through this transformation, and we have to be responsive and active in, you know, how we talk to our partners, and how we approach sex, because it can evolve and change as your orientation or identity might over time. I also think we need to touch on pronouns as well. You know, that is a huge part of consent and respect in a sexual relationship. You know, dead names stay dead. I think that's really important. Dead pronouns stay dead. If somebody is not respecting your pronouns, if somebody is not respecting your identity, they do not deserve any space in your sex life or otherwise. And you deserve to be with people who are going to hold space for you in, you know, your complex and beautiful selves. So I think that's really important to touch upon. Tonja, did you have any extra comments or?
I do. Definitely. I know a lot of us have cis hetero friends who don't fully understand transitioning. And if they ask, if you are in a situation where one of your friends or someone you're close with asks a person who is transitioning, hey, what was your birth gender? Stop them right there, take them to the side and let them know that is not okay. Like she said, dead names stay dead. Do not allow someone else around you to say, what was your birth gender? Who were you before? Because that doesn't matter anymore. They transitioned, they did that work. They get respected for the pronouns and the orientation and the physical appearance that they have worked so hard to achieve, and respect that even through the transition as well. So that's a huge thing that I make sure to educate my friends about, and the people around me are, please do not ask anybody what their birth gender were. Just please respect them as the person that they are now in this time, in this space presently. So yeah.
Definitely. That's really well said. Okay. Let's move on to the next. How to talk about boundaries.
Boundaries. I don't feel like having sex right now. I don't want that toy to be used on me. That hurts. Creating a safe word. And no is a safe word. I don't feel comfortable with you doing A, B, or C. Please don't talk about your other partners around me. I'm so sorry. I don't want that anymore. Being in a throuple, having multiple partners, both men and women, at times it can be a new language and it can be very uncomfortable. Being with two different personalities while trying to figure out your personality as well, and incorporating yourself with multiple partners or just one partner. And saying, please don't talk about your other partners, or, hey, let's not talk about my partner while you're around me right now. I just want to focus on us, is definitely a great boundary to say. I just want to focus on me and you is a great boundary to say. Also, during sex, if you're having multiple partners or just one partner, saying that hurts and saying it in a way where they're like, hey, stop. Always stop that person. Never allow someone to overstep your boundary. That's your personal power, and don't ever let anybody else take that away from you, because that is yours. If they cannot understand that, if they are not respecting that, goodbye, because you deserve better, and you deserve someone who makes your boundaries present, known, and they incorporate that into their life. And respecting their boundaries as well, opening space. It's never an easy conversation. It hurts. It can be a lot to pull through, especially when you're using your personal power and you've never fully engaged in that, or you're trying to empower yourself more with having your voice heard and saying things that make you feel uncomfortable. It's never an easy conversation having your boundaries said. And to incorporate all of our attendees right now in the chat, what is one boundary that you are just set on that you do not want someone to cross? Or how do you let someone know that your boundary is crossed, and how do you navigate that? For anyone in the chat. Christina, how do you navigate your boundaries, or when you're talking to your partners, how do you let them know how you feel when incorporating your boundaries?
So for me personally, as like a femme identified bisexual and a bottom, so I'm often on the receiving end of like toy usage. So I have to set boundaries for like the size of the toys sometimes. Sometimes I've had a partner who wanted to use a toy on me that was much too big for my personal comfort and my preferences. And at one point that trust and boundary was violated, and it did cause physical damage, including bleeding. So now I'm very firm about that and saying, no, like this is the size that I will accept into my body, and that's that. And there's no other discussion about it, really. Just learning to like be firm and saying like, no, I will not accept that size toy into my body. I don't feel comfortable.
Definitely. And that is definitely a boundary that cannot be crossed. If that's something that's going beyond your physical space, beyond your mental space, it just does not need to be crossed at all. E said, I share a list of hard limits with all of my partners. Yes. And also establish a safe word system with everyone I engage with. For everyone in the chat, hard limits are limits that you just will not cross. That is your boundary. That is, for example, I don't like doing A, B, and C during sex. That is my hard limit. You will not surpass hard limits. That's it. You won't further engage after that. And I like how you share a list of your hard limits. A lot of people don't understand what their hard limits are. And for everyone in the chat, for your future partners, write down a list of things that you don't feel comfortable with during sex. You can also research different sexual styles, or just, I don't like screaming, I don't like yelling, that's my hard limit. Those hard limits can be anything that you're not comfortable with during sex, and that can be a definite boundary. Thank you, E, for saying that. And also establishing a safe word system with everyone that you engage with, if you're engaged in a group or if you're engaged with one person. A safe word can be many random things. It can be red, it could be orange, blue, it can also be nonverbal as well. It can be a hand cue. It can be 2 fingers for stop. It can be 1 finger for go. It can be 3 fingers for I'm okay, but give me a second. It can also be flexion of your voice, like and like boundaries can be nonverbal as well when it comes with your safe words. So there are many ways to do safe words. And there are many ways that you can express your boundaries with a partner. Always, like I say, a casual conversation. And boundaries can also be engaged with during sex as well. If they do something that you absolutely do not like, go ahead and express that. That's a boundary. If they cross that boundary again the next time, go ahead and stop the whole thing, have that conversation, and engage tomorrow, the next day. But also give yourself time to process and release, and give yourself that space. If the person, as Christina said earlier, having the space to open that space for how someone reacts, as well as processing and giving yourself time and space to process those reactions and the reactions within yourself as well.
Yeah.
Definitely.
We're going to talk about ethical non-monogamy.
Ethical non-monogamy.
Yay.
Monogamy is a very traditional way. We all know monogamy as marriage, having one partner. When how our world is going, how we are becoming as beings on this planet, you don't have to have one partner. That's something that a lot of people will try to make you feel guilty about having multiple partners, but no. Ethical non-monogamy. Communicate with everyone. Everyone involved should be aware of the arrangement of the situation. There have been instances with certain people in my life who will engage or say, oh, I'm in an open relationship, and their partner's not aware of that. I know we all may know of the Will Smith and Jada Pinkett situation, which is non-ethical non-monogamy, where they expressed an open relationship, but they weren't in the thorough to do so. So we all know entanglement. Entanglement happened, and it wasn't the right time. And that was a really good example of someone not respecting non-monogamy practices. It should always be a conversation between you and the other partners, not just for sexual purposes, but for the safety of all partners involved as well. Evolving and changing your preferences for types of sexual relationships is a natural part of exploring your sexuality. You're going to be with numerous personalities. You're going to be with numerous presenting peoples, and you will have to be ready for understanding that not one person will be the same when you're with them. You might be in a relationship with 1 or 2 people here, but on the other side, someone else might need all of your attention. Always make sure to engage and to pace yourself, because that's a lot with engaging with 2 partners here, 1 partner here, and having different partners in your life as well. You do not have to be monogamous. That is something that is not in your path. Don't allow anyone to ever tell you, oh, you need to get married and you need to have 1 partner. That is not how this life is going. There's numerous ways for you to live your life. It's your destiny to do what you want to do. It's what what you're meant to be on this earth for. Monogamy is a very traditional sense. Now, don't feel guilty. If you want to be monogamous, that's a beautiful thing as well. Go ahead and engage in that. Be with your 1 partner. It's a beautiful thing. Please. But if you have the feeling within yourself, if you're monogamous for a couple of years and you're like, hey, with my partner, I want to talk about having an open relationship, and that's where the communication comes in. Being ethical in life in general is always having the right standards and the right boundaries with those around you, and not allowing those boundaries to be crossed as well. So ethical non-monogamy, it's definitely a practice. There will be people who don't believe in that, who don't agree with that. It's not theirs, it's yours. So always do what's in your best self-interest with practicing non-monogamy. You can be, and there's many ways you can do it. You can be a throuple. You can have numerous sex partners. You can be in rooms with numerous sex partners. You can engage in sexual practices where it's just you with numerous partners. You can be having relationships for long periods of time. You can have a relationship in one night. It is all up to you and your style, how creative you want to be with it. So yeah,
Beautifully said. And I feel like to touch on like an astrology point, because I have to bring astrology in there.
Astrology.
I feel like when I think about like placements that are like more geared towards ethical non-monogamy, I mean, I have to think like Aquarius, because it's so focused on groups, and especially with this younger Gen Z generation, they have multiple Aquarius placements. It's about group harmony and groups. So, you know, Venus in Aquarius is like a big placement for really being on a path that's like geared towards non-monogamy. So I don't know, that's just like my observation, like from studying astrology.
Definitely becoming a thing. Even I'm starting to notice couples who are like coming from the baby boomer generation to being millennials are now being open enough to have multiple partners, and understanding that we are not linear beings. We're very non-binary. We're very non-linear. So we can't just have, coming back into pleasure, we just can't have pleasure with one person if we don't feel so, if it's not conducive to our nature. If we would like to have multiple partners, going back into communicating that, and if that's our pleasure, and if the partners are open to that, then having that exploration and allowing yourself to be in your fullest expression with that. So yeah.
Beautifully said. Okay. Oops, it didn't work out.
No.
So sometimes you're going to go through all the steps. You're going to, you know, talk about consent. You're going to talk about boundaries. You're going to do everything right. And this might happen to you. I love this line.
Me too.
Not that this has ever happened to me. So for context, or for people who aren't able to see it, it's an image of two like anime girls, and they are covering their faces in embarrassment, and they're in a bed, and the text says, "And so they were both bottoms." So basically their sexual styles are not compatible, and you know, sometimes it can feel embarrassing when that happens. You get into bed with somebody and like, you know, oops, like there's no chemistry. And you know what? That's totally okay. You made a cuddle buddy, you know? So
You just say no. You
yeah,
know?
just say I'm good.
Yeah, say I'm good.
And then this is one of my favorite sayings that I've been using lately. Rejection is just redirection. Tonja, have you ever been rejected before sexually?
Quite a few times, but it's okay, because I would rather it be a safe space versus it being a non-safe space. So
Exactly.
I really appreciate the lesson of rejection, and it just helps me to move on and to keep exploring and seeing new partners who will not reject and will be like, hey, I want to try this. Yeah, let's try it. So
Exactly.
how about you, Christina?
Oh yeah, I've been sexually rejected like multiple times from various genders, and you know, it's not really fun in the moment, but it's like somebody's taking you by the shoulders and like, oh, whoops, that, you know, not the right person for you. Let's just like move you over here. You know, like how we want to think like, how can you hold space for the people that are meant to come into your sex life if you're holding on to people that aren't meant for you? We want to be like, you know, thinking of it that way instead of thinking of it as a negative. And
Yes.
I feel like when I was younger, I took rejection super harshly, and as I've gotten older, I just don't care as much, I guess.
Yes. And honestly, never ever stay with a partner who rejects sexually. Don't ever keep holding, or don't ever, and if you say no and you reject them and they're coercing you, just let them go. Don't ever hold on. Like Christina said, if you holding on, you're not able to attract partners who can give you exactly what you want. A really good Zen proverb that I saw the other day was, go with the flow or get dragged. You have to either go with the flow, or if you keep holding on, you will get dragged through the process. So definitely don't allow yourself to hold on to anything that does not service you at all.
Absolutely. Okay, so since it's Friday and it's been a long week for everybody, we wanted to incorporate astrology and communication into our panel because this topic is really fun for us.
Yes, so we're gonna have to be a little quick. We are at time.
Yes.
So it was wonderful, but we would love to do this astrology in game. So let's do it real quick while we're at time.
Yes.
Yes.
So I was thinking what we're gonna do is just go over some tips. I know that y'all might be really into astrology and like sun signs and everything like that, and we want to talk briefly about how you can work with all of the energies that are going on in your birth chart to optimize communication for sex. So did you want to touch on some of like the major points, maybe talk about like Mercury placements?
Oh, you just actually threw me out. Yeah, Mercury placements.
About communication.
Yes.
As we know.
Yes.
In all forms.
Right.
And maybe the Venus and Mars placements as well.
Ooh, definitely Venus, Mars, and Mercury will definitely be our focus. So I will just touch on ones that I know really well would be, if you have any partners, or if you yourself are a certain sign that you're like, okay, I'm a water sign, I'm with an earth sign, they have a lot of earth in their Mercury and their Venus. They're lovers that don't require a lot of attention. They just require you to talk to them and to give them, some nice cuddles, and that's about it. If you have water sign that's really heavy in the Mercury, in the Venus, they're going to require a lot of tissues, and they're going to require a lot of loving on, a lot of attention. You're be a little quick, but Christina, you go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No, I interrupted. Go ahead.
Oh no, you're well versed. You please.
I was gonna say, if you have like your Mercury in an air sign, which I do, my Mercury's in Libra, that's gonna be your talkers. They're gonna want to talk a lot during sex, especially your Mercury in Geminis, your Mercury in Aquarius. It's gonna be a lot of talking, as is the Mars and Venus air placements are going to really need a lot of mental stimulation for sex, more so than physical, like talking about sex, or communicating about it. Like that is what is going to be good for them.
Yes, we forgot fire signs.
How can we forget fire signs? How can anybody forget about fire signs?
Burn it all up. Definitely, Christina, I think you would know fire signs better than me.
Yeah, so your fire signs, we're talking about communication, especially if you have like your Mars in Leo, your Venus in Leo, a lot of affirmation, a lot of praise, love, compliments. Also, if you have your Venus in Aries or your Mars in Aries, they like to initiate, they like to take charge in the communication. Your Sagittarius placements are going to be a little more go with the flow, but still fiery. But yes, definitely, we need to like change things up. Need a lot of, physical stimulation. So, I think astrology can be like a super fun tool to kind of get into your partner's like psyche and see like what is a turn on for them, or what works best to communicate with them.
Yes, definitely. And, if something online says, hey, you and this partner, don't have sexual compatibility because you are a Taurus and they are a Sagittarius, it doesn't matter. If you have the physical attraction to them, go for it, because something in your chart matches with their chart.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
definitely go for it. And if you enjoy it and be intuitive with it, you're like, I know you're a Gemini, but I really appreciate how you make me feel right now. Go for it.
I love Gemini.
Definitely. All right.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess on that end note, like astrology is super fun. We don't, take it too seriously, maybe. You can learn to work with the energies. Everybody has personal agency, and all of the things that we talked about are, first and foremost and most important: consent, boundaries, communication, and all of that. But, also astrology stuff can be like a fun pickup line, if you're interested in someone.
Oh, did you fall from heaven? Sagittarius? Did it hurt?
Okay.
Oh, man. Well, we're ending off this
we are
chat.
at time. We could talk about astrology all day.
That'll be a whole nother series, y'all.
Yes, that's going to be our next series. Astrology for queer relationships.
Yes, definitely. We really appreciate everyone who came into the chat today. Thank you so much for holding space and allowing us to give knowledge today.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you both so much for doing this. This has been a really informative presentation. Gonna drop a couple things in the chat. So our next session is on Monday. It's called Decolonizing Gender and Sexuality, and it's about the anti-Black roots of queerphobia. So the link for that is in the chat. And we also love getting feedback from folks. So if you're interested, our feedback form is also in the chat if any of the attendees would like to let us know what you thought about this session. But that's all I have to say. Thank you, Christina, and thank you, Tonja. This was really amazing. Yeah, so hope to see everyone at future Q+EDU sessions.
Yay, thank you. This was our first session, so, give us feedback, and we had so much fun working on it together, so I hope you enjoyed it as well. Happy Friday, and enjoy your weekends.
Love you, folks. Have a wonderful weekend.
Okay, bye.
Bye.